Assalamu alaikum. Can everybody hear me again? I think now everybody should be able to hear me. Okay, perfect. All right. I don't know how much of what I was saying you guys caught and how much you didn't, so I'm just going to start all over. Bismillah. The website has been updated as of yesterday. All of the videos up through day 3 should be up there, the review sessions as well as the class videos. Um, the workbook for days 1 through 5 and the answer key for the workbook are on the website as well. And the two audios that Ustad mentioned, the first audio where he read through the Aslama family, the past and present tenses, and then the one from yesterday where he did the entire first two lines, active and passive. Both of the audios are on the website as well. So you should be able to view those and have a good time with those. Alhamdulillah, I'm doing well. Jazakumullah khairan for asking. I hope all of you are doing well as well. But without further ado, let us get started. If you have any questions, please do drop them in the chat and we'll start to go over them. The workbook for Sarf, yes, the Sarf workbook should be available now. Let me just show you all where it's at so there's no confusion. You should all be able to see the screen. Here's the website. If you go to study materials, all the way at the bottom, uh, here, attachment, Sarf workbook, days 1 through 5, and you have the key here as well. Yeah. Who is this? I sound different? Well, it's the same Ustad Jawad. Don't worry about that. What is the name for the ism which follows a special mudaf? Well, a special mudaf is still a mudaf. So the ism that follows it will still be a mudaf ilayh. Can I explain the effect of pronouns on a family? What do you mean when you say pronouns? Because there's pronouns that are built into the fi'l, and then there's the pronouns that attach at the end of the fi'l. So, Aisha, if you can clarify which pronouns you're talking about, then I will be better able to answer that, inshallah. All right, let's see. Can I repeat? I just lost that question. Something about hints. Whoever asked the question about repeating hints, I lost that. Can you please put it in the chat again? For all of you asking who I voted for, I'm not going to answer that question. So please stop spamming the chat. Try to keep the questions relevant to Nahu and Sarf, inshallah, because that's what these sessions were created for. So that if there are any Nahu and Sarf related doubts, we can clear them, inshallah. Commanding and forbidding is gonna come in Sarf, so don't worry about that too much yet. It's actually coming next after passives. Odina, Can I explain the difference between I slept, I was put to sleep, and I was slept? Well, the last one doesn't really make any sense. I was slept. It's not really unless you're talking about slang, like knock, like meaning you were knocked out. I was slept doesn't make sense. I slept means you yourself went to sleep. So you are performing the action of sleeping. I was put to sleep means somebody else put you to sleep. So um, in the second case, I was put to sleep, that is a passive verb, the verb being put to sleep. So you were put to sleep, but who put you to sleep? We don't know who put you to sleep. So that one would be passive. The first one is active, the second one is passive, and the third one doesn't make sense. Can I repeat the hints to remember present tense? Sure. The present tense, so there's um, weird. Okay. There's aru, there's also na or nu, there's uh, ya or you, and then with this one we have to break it down with the different endings as well. So there's ya or you by itself, there's ya or you plus ani, there's ya or you plus una, and there's ya or you plus na. And then, one second, actually, let me make this a little bit better so it fits on the line. Okay, there we go. And then for ta, it's very, very similar to ya. So we have ta or tu by itself. You also have ta or tu plus ani, ta or tu plus una, ta or tu plus na. And then for ta and tu, we have an extra one, ta or tu plus uh, ina. So these are all the different combinations. And then obviously each of these would have a pronoun associated with it. So a in u is ana, na in nu is nahnu, sorry. Ya in you is huwa, ta in tu could be anta or it could be hiya, and so on. So you would have to be familiar with those as well. Hira, I keep on forgetting the meanings of harf of jar, harf nasab, lightest, harf special mudaf. Should I be worried? Yeah, you should. I mean, you don't have to be worried, but it's definitely something you should be concerned with. Uh, Try to take some time, daily, review all this old stuff. Don't let yourself forget all the things you've already learned, right? We spent 60 hours learning it, so don't let those 60 hours go to waste. We want to keep those 60 hours. We want to make sure that they were put to good use, right? So review every once in a while everything we've already covered to make sure it doesn't disappear. Especially stuff like this vital, all the charts that we memorized, the Muslim chart, the harf of jar, harf of nasab, special mudafs, feminine because the Arab said so, the present tense, past tense, ism ishara, and so on. Make sure you don't forget all this stuff. So does the ending vowel on the masdar need to be the same as in the pattern? So when we are dealing with patterns, this is something that everybody should pay attention to. Okay, أسلم يسلم إسلاما فهو مسلم. The first two are simple now. I believe most of you should be able to, or most of you should have grasped the concept already that, okay, this is a past tense. We have aslama, and that's the basic original form. But we can also take it through all of the other different forms, right? Aslama, aslama, aslamu, aslamat, aslamata, aslamna, aslamta, aslamtuma, aslamtum, aslamti, aslamtuma, aslamtunna, ana aslamtu, nahnu aslamna. We can do the same thing with yuslimu. We can take it through all of the different forms. Yuslimu, yuslimani, yuslimuna, tuslimu, tuslimani, yuslimna. تسلم تسلمان تسلمون تسلمين تسلمان تسلمن أسلم and نسلم. That's simple enough for fi'ls. For Islaman and Muslimun, these are isms. And if you recall, way back when we were doing page 6 during intensive 1 and intensive 2, we went over the Muslim chart, and the Muslim chart was for isms. So just like we can take aslama and we can put it in all of its different forms, and we can take yuslimu and we can put it in all of its different forms. I can take islaman and I can put it in rafa' nasab jar, or I could make it. Um, well, for right now, we'll just stick with rafa' nasab jar and proper and common. So I can say Islamun, Islaman, Islamin. I can also add alif lam to it. I can say al-Islamu, al-Islama, al-Islami, right? That's all still, it still fits the pattern because the ending can change. The ending can always change. And same thing here. This is actually the word Muslim, so it can take any form from the Muslim chart. Muslimun, Musliman, Muslimin, Muslimani, Muslimaini, Muslimaini, Muslimuna, Muslimina, Muslimina, Muslimatun, Muslimatan, Muslimatin, Muslimatani, Muslimataini, Muslimataini, Muslimatun, Muslimatin, and Muslimat. Present tense will always start with Hamza, Ya, Ta, or Noon, yes. Aisha, okay, when it comes to attached pronouns are not gonna have an effect on the doer or the done to, right? So for example, if I said, um, so daraba means to hit. So if I have darabahu Zaydun, I have Zayd as an outside doer, and I have who as the attached pronoun. The attached pronoun in this case will be the detail. Zayd hit. Who did Zayd hit? Zayd hit him or it, right? Um, Now, if I take it into the passive, this this attached pronoun that was the detail originally, now that attached pronoun becomes the done to in the passive version because I'm getting rid of Zaid. Zaid originally was the doer. He was doing the hitting, but now we don't know who's doing the hitting anymore, right? In Buriba, we don't know who's doing the hitting. All we know is that he was hit. So now he is not an attached pronoun anymore. He is now the built-in pronoun. He is the done to for duriba. Does that make sense? Zaid, the doer, disappears, and the detail becomes the done to. That's the relationship between the attached pronoun in the active and the done to in the passive. I hope that was clear, Sister Aisha. Let me know if there's any questions on that. How do you recognize that in ism? That in ism? Mishi, I'm not sure I understand the question. How do I recognize that it's an ism attached with the pronoun? Okay, so are you asking if I have a word with an attached pronoun at the end, how can I tell if that first word that the pronoun is attached to is a fi'l or an ism? Well, we're doing sarf now, and the farther we get into sarf, the easier it's going to become for you to recognize fi'ls. And if you can recognize a fi'l, then when you don't recognize it, that means it'll be an ism. And there are certain hints to recognize isms and fi'ls as well. Ustad Numan did mention this in passing. He didn't like write it out though. H Khan, the who in Darabahu is turning into the built-in done to in Duriba. So remember when we went over fi'ls, right? Each form of a fi'l has a built-in pronoun. So Duriba has a built-in huwa, and so that who in Darabahu is the built-in huwa for Duriba. So in the first one, you can say he hit him, so that him at the end became he was hit. The Sarf workbook is on the website. Should you memorize past tense passive? Absolutely. You should also memorize present tense passive. You should memorize whatever you get introduced to because you're learning a language and you can't speak a language if every time you want to say a word, you have to open your notes and look at a chart. Mm, If a word is similar to the yuslimu form, but the harakat are different, that's correct. Remember when we talked about the pot and the contents? So the harakat, the vowels on yuslimu, the u, I mean not the ending one, but the u and then the sukun and then the e, those are all parts of the pattern. If you don't match those, then you're not matching the pattern. So if I say nasara yansuru, I always forget to write stuff down. Sorry. If I'm looking at yuslimu, the u, the sukun, and the e on the first three letters are part of the pattern. So if I'm looking at yansuru, and first of all, the ya doesn't even match. It's ya instead of you. So that's already, you're already not matching anymore. The sukun matches, and then the third letter has u instead of e. So this does not match yuslimu. That's why when a lot of you were asking, a lot of you asked about this the first couple days. If it's yuslimu, then how come for nasara it's yansuru? Because nasara yansuru doesn't match aslama yuslimu. Nasara yansuru is a different family than aslama yuslimu. I can take the same letters, the root of nasara yansuru, which is noon, sad, and ra, and I can put it into aslama yuslimu. And that would look like an sara yun yunsiru. And now you can see that it matches. U sukun e. U sukun e. Yunsiru yuslimu. But yansuru does not match. Book fell off the table. Um, because the action in a book fell off the table. Remember, we don't inanimate just because something can't move doesn't mean it can't perform the action, if that makes sense. So we're saying the book fell off the table. What is the action? What is the verb in the sentence? The verb in the sentence is fell. Fell. What's falling? The book is falling. Okay? That's why book is the doer here. If I said, for example, the book was thrown off the table, now what is the verb? The verb in this case is thrown. Who is doing the throwing? We don't know who's doing the throwing. In the first one, if I asked who's doing the falling, you could say the book. But in this case, who's doing the throwing? We don't know. What's being thrown? That's still the book. So the book is the done to in the second one. It's the doer in the first one. It's all about finding who's doing the action. I hope that's clear, Mishi. Please read out the past tense for passive. Okay. Um, so I'll just do uslima. It's just gonna be like it's gonna be exactly like the past tense active. It's just instead of aslama, it's uslima. The endings are all the same. So huwa uslima, huma uslima, hum uslimu, hiya uslimat, huma uslimata, hunna uslimna, anta uslimta, antuma uslimtuma, antum uslimtum, anti uslimti, أنتما أسلمتما أنتن أسلمتن أنا أسلمت نحن أسلمنا. Ghania, that's correct. If you have a verb and in the sentence you don't know who the doer is, then it's passive. That's exactly what the definition of passive is. I went to the store. I am doing the going, right? Who went? I went. But if I said, for example, Zaid was hit. Who hit Zaid? I don't know who hit Zaid. So in that case, Zaid was hit is a passive sentence. What makes a family? That's a very philosophical question. I'm not sure I'm prepared to answer that one. Duriba, so daraba means he hit. Duriba means he was hit. Imran Isufo, what would be the meaning of duribahu? That wouldn't make any sense. You can't just add a pronoun wherever you want. It has to make sense, right? Darabahu, it makes sense. He hit him. So that who at the end means him. It's who is getting hit. But in duribahu, we already know who's getting hit. I can't just add another pronoun for the fun of it. Can I explain qatala? Okay. Um, so this is not the Aslama family. This is a different family. Qatala, the present tense for this is yuqatilu, okay? Qatala yuqatilu. When we're talking about taking an active word and making it passive, remember we went over two sets of sounds, right? For the past tense, it's oo, as many oos as we can fit, and then an e at the end. For present tense, it's one oo, then as many as we can fit. right? When we have these long sounds that we also have to change, the entire long sound is going to change. So if I have a long a, that I'm still going to change that whole long a to a long u. Okay? So just because it's a longer a doesn't mean it different rules apply. I still have to change that whole a to an u. So to make this passive, that long a becomes a long u. Weird. Ooh, tila. I hope that's clear. And then for the present tense, it's not as difficult because the long a is going to stay a long a. Yuqatalu. Utila yuqatalu. Those are the passive versions of qatala yuqatilu. Can I go over how to make longer words passive? Okay. I think I did some. I think I took this exact question yesterday too, but that's fine. Um, let's see. All right, we'll just go with old reliable. Istaghfara. The present tense for this is yastaghfiru. Istaghfara yastaghfiru. Remember, the rule for past tense is as many u's as we can fit, and then we have to have an e before as the second to last letter. We don't change the ending. We don't even touch the last letter. So this is going to stay raw. We don't touch the ending. The fa is going to be an e. The second to last letter becomes e. Everything else that has a vowel becomes an u. The ghain, there's no vowel here. It's going to stay. It's going to stay how it is. The sin, no vowel here. It's going to stay how it is. So the only things that are going to change are the ta and the alif. I mean, the fa is going to change as well, but we already talked about that. So excluding that, the ra stays the same. The ghain stays the same. The sin stays the same. The fa takes an e because it's the second to last letter, and everything else takes an u. So that becomes ustughfira, ustughfira, and that's the passive of istaghfara. Now, when we're talking about the present tense, we go through a similar methodology. The last letter stays the same. We're not going to touch it. The first letter in this case, now it has to become u. And then everything else that doesn't have a vowel will stay untouched. So the ghain will stay untouched. The sin will stay untouched. And then every other vowel will be replaced with an a. So again, the ra at the end stays the same. The first letter becomes u, then we add as everywhere else. So you, sin stays the same, add an a, ghain stays the same, add an a, then we keep the ending the same. Yustaghfaru. Istaghfara, ustughfira. Yastaghfiru, yustaghfaru. I hope the process was clear. Let me know if there's any more confusion on that. I think daraba means he was hit. Well, you can think that, but that doesn't make it true. Daraba means he hit, not he was hit, because daraba is active. To make it he was hit, it would be duriba. How to find the invisible is. To find the invisible is, you just need to find a break in the chain. If you see that there's a lot of fragments in a row, and then all of a sudden there's no connection anymore, that's a good hint that there's going to be an is there. Also, there are some things, if you see them, you can almost automatically assume that there will be an invisible is. Like if I see any of the independent pronouns, huwa, huma, hum, hiya, huma, hunna, anta, antuma, antum, anti, antuma, antunna, ana, and nahnu. If I see any of these uh, in a sentence, then I can almost always assume that there's gonna be an is after them. Not the attached. I'm not talking about the attached versions. I'm talking about the independent versions, the unattached ones. Only these. Okay? If you see one of these, you can pretty much be guaranteed there's going to be an is after it. Another thing that almost always gives away an is a harf of nasab. If you have a harf of nasab fragment, then after you find its victim, it's very likely there will be an is. So for example, inna Allah, the word Allah is the victim of inna here. Then I have ghafurun rahimun. In this case, I have the break here. Inna Allah is ghafurun rahim, and so on. That's just a brief understanding of it. I believe when Ustad went over it, he covered 5 different hints. If we need to, we can go over it, but I think that should be a good overview of it. What's the difference between qatala and qatala? Qatala means to fight. And qatala means to kill. That's the difference. Also, there are different families. Okay, seems like everybody wants to go over it, so let's just go over it. Okay, here we go. This is page 32 for whoever needs it. Page 32. So whenever we're talking about a jumla ismiya is a sentence that does not have any verbs in it. Okay? A jumla ismiya is a sentence that does not have any fi'ils in it. When we're talking about a jumla ismiya, then the goal of translation, before you can translate it into English, you need to find the invisible is. Okay? And remember, is can also be am, and is can also be are. These are all the same thing. Is, am, and are. You need to find the invisible is. And we have 5 hints on how to find the invisible is. And as you kind of practice, it'll become a lot easier to tell where the invisible is goes. But the 5 hints, first one is anytime you have an independent pronoun, it's usually followed by an invisible is. And this is what I was mentioning earlier. So in this case, ana muslimun. Ana means I, Muslim means Muslim. So when we translate this into English, we're not going to say I Muslim. It has to make sense. I can't say I Muslim. I have to say I am a Muslim. I am a Muslim. So after the independent pronoun, we get the invisible is. A pointer word that's not followed by alif lam. Remember when we talked about the pointer fragment, ismul ishara wal mushar ilayh, ismul ishara wal musharun ilayh. We said that the ism ishara has to be followed by a word with alif lam. If it's not followed by a word with alif lam, then that's not the ism ishara fragment. That's instead a sentence. So if I said هذا البيت with alif lam, هذا البيت, that would mean this house. But in this case, I don't have هذا البيت. I have هذا بيت. So this is not a fragment anymore. Now it's a sentence. هذا بيت. This is a house. Harf of nasab, I already mentioned this one as well. Harf of nasab and its ism, usually followed by an is. Inna Allah, this is our fragment. Indeed, Allah. Ala kulli shay'in qadir. Ala kulli shay' means over everything. Qadir means powerful. So we put the is after the harf of nasab fragment. Indeed, Allah is over all things powerful. A proper word followed by a common word is another hint. Al-kutub. Al-kutub, kutub is the plural of kitab. So kitab is book. Kutub is books. Al-kutub is the books. Saghira is a description. But remember, when we talked about the adjective fragment, we said it has to match in all four properties. So the problem here is, if this was going to be an adjective, then it would need to be proper as well. Al-kutubu as-saghiratu. Then that would be a fragment, meaning the small books. The small books. But because as-saghira is not, or because saghiratun is not proper, we have saghiratun instead of as-saghiratu. This is not a fragment anymore. I'm not going to say the small books. I'm going to say the books are small. It's a sentence now. Just like it's very similar to what we did with ism ishara. The al wasn't there, so it became a sentence. It doesn't match in all four here, so it becomes a sentence. And a break in the chain, ar-rajulu, fid-daur is a chain, meaning it's a fragment. These two words are connected, but there's no connection to ar-rajulu. So that break in the chain is where we get our is. The workbook is on the website, it's not on Facebook. Yeah, so these five hints, they're sometimes, actually more often than not, you're gonna find more than one in the same spot. So like for example, if I went over one of these examples, ذَلِكَ مِنْ آيَاتِ اللَّهِ. Here I have one of the hints I could use is I have ذَلِكَ, which is a pointer word. It's not followed by al. Also, I could use number 5, a break in the chain. Um, I think those are the only ones I can use. Technically, you could say this is proper and then it's not followed by another proper, but that one kind of only half applies. But more often than not, you're going to have more than one reason. It's not just going to be one hint. Okay, Aziza is asking about. Oh, I'm still on English. ذلك ذلك درس. This means that is a lesson. That is a lesson. If we added the alif lam, it would become that is, or that lesson. Now it's not a sentence anymore. It's a fragment. That lesson. But how do we say that is the lesson? This is something we haven't exactly learned yet. So don't ask me any more questions about this after I say it. But the way you would say it is ذلك هو الدرس. ذلك هو الدرس. That is the lesson. ذلك هو الدرس. Okay, inshallah, by in the next 3 minutes, we're going to wrap up the review and we're going to start the actual class. So last minute questions and we'll wrap up. How is yadaka in idafa? Yad means hand, so it's an ism. Kaf is an attached pronoun. Attached pronoun attached to an ism is always in idafa. That's how. So, Ayman, Fatima, I'm a little confused on attached pronouns antum as tum and kum. Well, when you see it tum, like in a fi'l, it's not an attached pronoun. It's a built-in pronoun. If I say nasartum, that's not attached because I can't just remove it. If I remove it, I'm changing the word. But if I say nasara kum, he helped you all, I can remove it. Nasara still stays nasara. That doesn't change. He helped is still he helped if I remove kum. But if I have nasartum and I remove the tum, nasartum means you all helped. But if I remove the tum, I'm taking the you all away. So now that's changing the word. So nasartum is a built-in pronoun. Nasarakum is a attached pronoun. There's a difference between the two. Okay, inshallah, I'm gonna go ahead and end this session. The next session should be up in the next few minutes. Jazakumullah khairan for attending. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته